discussion today is a very serious one. And I want you all to bear with me, inshallah ta'ala. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا مولانا محمد وبارك وسلم. رب يسر ولا تعسر وأتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا أرحم الراحمين. We begin in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, the Sea. Peace and abundant blessings and salutations upon the last and final Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for us and not to make it difficult. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us all knowledge and grant us all understanding. Ameen, thumma ameen. My dear esteemed and beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, today we just heard that there were two deaths, and sometimes you and I forget the reality of death itself because we are so caught up in the materialistic gains and the secular lifestyle that we as Muslims in our communities and societies, we have forgotten all about death and the reality of it and what will occur and what will happen to us after we pass away. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Holy Quran, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ, that every soul shall taste death. And this is why the second leader of the believers, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Hazrat Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, Allah be pleased with him, that when he became the Khalif, when he became the Caliph of Islam, he appointed an individual with payment, with a stipend. As Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he just appointed an individual to be placed by his door, and every time he goes out to work and when he returns from his work, that just to remind him of death. Just this action alone, as Umar radiallahu ta'ala, Allah be pleased with him, he will appoint this individual with payment. And when he leaves the house, he says, Ya Umar, uzkur al-maut. Umar, remember death. And when he leaves the workplace and he comes back home, he will say, Ya Umar, uzkur al-maut. Remember death. Can you imagine this? Just this simple action he appointed with payment this individual to do, to stand by his door and just to remind him of death. So because you know why? Because even being the leader of the believers, being one of the companions of the last and final and beloved Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we can all get caught up in the worldly games. We can get all caught up in the materialistic gains of this world. So he said to himself, I don't want this to happen to me. So I will appoint this individual just to remind me of death. So I won't forget it. That today sometime, whether it be today or tomorrow, I myself is going to face death. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ says that, oh, لا تنسى الموت فإن الموت لا ينساكم. That do not forget death, for death does not forget you. Whilst you are gaining in your worldly life, Whilst you want to get married, whilst you are married, whilst you have children, whilst you're trying to build a new house, trying to build a life for yourself, you have to remember, whilst doing all of that, if Allah wills and your time is decreed, then therefore that is going to come to your doorstep. Malakul Maut, the angel of death, he is not going to delay a second or a minute or an hour. If your time is decreed and appointed, then therefore he will snatch and take your soul. The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Mawtu ka'sun kullu nasin sharibuha. That death is like a cup that whereby all of us shall drink from. Today, I want you to imagine this hadith. Today, if I were to bring a cup of water and were to ask all of these beautiful gentlemen here today to drink from it, all of us are going to scorn. None of us will want to drink from that same cup. And this is one of the reasons why we have forgotten, because we became so materialistic and secularized. We forgot the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, whereby, you know what they'll say in the colloquial terms, the Jumada, which is the remnants of a Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ, that those remnants whereby a person drinks from, and another believer and another Muslim drink from, is shifa, is cure. But today, because we become too materialistic, I want my own water, I want my own bottle, I want my own this. Oh, you see a Stanley cup, you want it. This is what is happening. But the Prophet ﷺ said that, Al-Mawtu ka'sun. You want to scorn the cup that you're drinking from now? But you must know that death is like a cup whereby you and I are all going to drink from. My dear, esteemed and revered brothers and sisters in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Burujun mushayyada. Even if you try to fortify a house, even if you build a castle, even if you were to build anything with the best of best street blocks, that is possession that you have, it would not be able and prevent you from death. You have to take cognizance of this. And when you and I start to think about death, we think it is some type of unknown, unrealistic spectrum. That what is going to happen? And sometimes because of us thinking of death that maybe sometimes going to come to us, we say, hey, I have not achieved much in my life. What happens if death comes? Hey, my children never got this. I never finished and complete my house. I never finished my business. I never got the entitlement that I deserve. And then say, hey, if death comes to us, what is happening? This is the type of things we thinking if death were to come to us. What I'm leaving behind for my children. When Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, radiallahu ta'ala, may Allah be pleased with him, when he was in Sakarat al-Maut, when he was in the death row in his bed, the people asked him, Ya Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, oh Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, what are you leaving behind for your children? What inheritance you are leaving behind for your children? What wealth you are leaving behind for your children? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud never replied and said, hey, I have done so and so business. I have left this office. I have left this building. He said that, oh, سَمِعْتُ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. I heard the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم say, مَنْ قَرَأَ سُورَةَ الْوَاقِيَةِ بَعْدَ الْمَغْرِبِ. The one who recites Surah Al-Waqiyah every day after Maghrib Salah, indeed this will be sufficient provisions for him, and I have taught my children this. Whilst he was in the death row, whilst he was in his bed, the people say, right, I will. Leave wealth behind for your children. What wealth? What possession? What finance? I heard my beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam say, the one who recites Surah Al-Waqiyah, the chapter concerning the inevitable, the one who recites it every day after the Maghrib prayer, this will be sufficient needs and sufficient provision for him. Look at the things of the companions to think about whilst they are on the deathbed. When death is about to take them, this is what it means, saqatul maut. When death is about to take you, you and I are healthy and strong now. How our thinking, how is our ideology, and how are we preparing for death? And when death comes to you and I, it could be today, it could be the next minute, it could be tomorrow, it could be in the future. Allah knows the best. But what we have prepared for it. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take our souls now, what will be the outcome? When a person passes away, they announce the janazah, as you just heard. They do the i'lan of janazah, announcement of the funeral prayer. And this is also from the prophetic traditions as well. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, haqqul muslim ala muslimin. The right of a Muslim upon another Muslim, ittiba'ul janaiz, is to follow the procession of the funeral prayer. Long ago, the righteous predecessors, when they would hear about the janazah of anyone from the locality, anyone from the community, anyone from the Muslim village, when they would hear about a Muslim death, they would all hasten towards the procession of that funeral. But because against secular, against a materialistic world, when we hear about the death nowadays, hey, I don't have time for that. This is why they became righteous. This is why their names are being mentioned now. If you were to die, you think your name is going to be mentioned? Do you think people are going to remember you for the amount of wealth and the secular ways you have? You must ask yourself this. Why the Prophet ﷺ still be remembered today? Why is the Khulafa Rashidin being mentioned today? They have wealth, but they are not being remembered for their wealth. The Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declared, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, if you want Mount Uhud to turn into gold, I will turn it into gold for you. Those who went for Hajj and Umrah, they'll know the height of Mount Uhud. Can you imagine the amount of gold is that? The Prophet ﷺ, Ya Allah, I don't need that. I want to get closer to you. I want to get the ma'arifah, the cognizance of you, O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This was the love Rasulullah wanted to gain from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we pass away, it is recommended. The righteous preachers and the scholars were eager and be eager to go to a funeral. But nowadays, if the person was not known, hey, we're not going to that. But if the person is known, I remember when one of the Indian songsters, chutney singers, passed away, Muslim and non-Muslim, they all gathered and followed the music shop. Astaghfirullah. This is how we become. When Tanle passed away, we all flock. But when someone from the community is unknown, we don't go to the funeral. We are not aware, we don't even want to know. Why? I have to go back to my work. I have to finish this business transaction. Business transactions, my dear esteemed brothers and sisters, it will come and go. But deeds and actions, if you miss it at that point of time, is no more going to come back. So when an individual passes away, he is placed into the grave. He is put into the grave. And this is why Abdurrahman ibn Hajjaj, may Allah be pleased with him, he says that سَمِعْتُ مِنْ أَبِي, I heard from my beloved father Ibn Hajjaj, radiallahu ta'ala, may Allah be pleased with him, that indeed he said to me, he said, Ya Bunayya, O my beloved son, إِذَا مُتُّ, when I pass away, place me in the grave, fi lahad. So lahad is a type of grave, whereby it is laid from underneath and faced to the direction of the Qibla. You all know the difference, there are 3 types of graves, but we have no time to go into that. Inshallah, we do a course on that as well. So there are different forms and ways of digging the grave. He says, place me into my grave in the form of a lahad. And then take the dirt and say, Bismillahi wa ala millati Rasulillah, and pour it onto me. He says, Sami'tu min Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, because I heard this from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is from the prophetic traditions when you go to the graveyard. This is from the actions of the beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When you place the deceased, when you place the mayyit into the grave, you take up some dirt for the person, the undertaker. That's why it's very good as well to implement undertakers to be Muslim as well. So when they take that shovel, they take that fork and they place it into the grave, they say Bismillah in the name of Allah, wa ala millati, and upon the religion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and take that dirt and place it on the ground. And when you finish cover the grave, he said that, oh, I heard from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that you should recite the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah and the ending of Surah Al-Baqarah by my head. In another narration mentioned by my head and the ending of Surah Al-Baqarah by my feet. All of these are prophetic traditions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in another narration, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you can make dua by the grave. When I came into this community, I was bewildered. That when I will make dua and I will stand by the grave, many people will turn away from the grave and will face another direction. Like if they will do something haram, forbidden. It is permissible that if you make dua, you can raise your hand even by the grave. There is no harm and it is not forbidden to do so. Many people say that, oh, this is bid'ah, this is haram. My dear esteemed brothers and sisters in Islam, we need to awaken our minds. We need to learn proper and sacred knowledge. And after you finish, if you have time, some of the ulama and the righteous scholars, they will say, if you recite Surah Al-Baqarah at the beginning and the ending, after it is finished buried, you can also recite more Quran. And if you even have the time, you should recite the entire Quran there as well. But because many of us, we don't want to learn Quran, we're not sending our children to learn Quran, so after the Imam comes, we finish, make the dua, and we all go, we leave. You all don't know the benefit of reciting Quran by the grave as a being put down. So you don't want to send your children to learn Quran, you don't want to learn Quran, but when you pass away, when your family member pass away, you want someone to stay there and recite Quran. Hey, the mentality of some of us. And after they are buried, my dear esteemed beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned beautifully in a hadith, and this hadith is recorded in Jami al-Tirmidhi, and some of the scholars of hadith have mentioned it as Hassan, meaning it is excellent, and some have mentioned it as Sahih, meaning it is authenticated through the change of narrators. The Prophet ﷺ, إِذَا قُبِرَ الْمَيِّتِ, when the deceased is placed into the grave, آتَاهُ مَلَكَانْ أَسْوَدَانْ أَرْزَقَانْ, the two angels descend in his grave. Both of them are dark, both of them are black, both of them are blue. So the scholars have mentioned that these two angels descend in the grave that are black. It is their appearance. And their eyes are blue. Why they came into this description? Because darkness and blackness show a sign of fear. So when they place into the grave, the person who's in the grave, they become fearful. And when the eyes are blue, that's all they are seeing. So they become frightened. لأحدهما منكر والآخر والنكير. And the first one is munkar and the second one is nakir. Both of them descend into the grave in the color, in the appearance of blackness, and their eyes are blue. And they will ask the questions. مَا تَقُولُ هَذَا رَجُلٌ. One of the questions they will ask is, what do you know about this man? Meaning Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the person in the grave will reply that huwa abdullah. وأن أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله. And he replied that this man is Abdullah, the son, Muhammad, the son of Abdullah. And I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is a servant and messenger. And these two angels, Munkar and Nakir, said, قَدْ نَعْلَمُ تَقُولُ هَذَا. Surely we know that you will say this. Nim, sleep beautifully. There were these two angels, when they answer the question properly, they will say, sleep beautifully, sleep harmoniously, sleep peacefully. And then the person will say that, oh, أرجعوا إلى أهلي أنا أخبرهم. Return me to my family so I can inform them of the peacefulness of the grave, so I can inform them of the tranquility of the grave, so I can inform them of these questions that they answered correctly. Look at this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Pay attention here, my dear esteemed brothers and sisters in Islam. This person who is in the grave, he asked the angels that return me to my family so I can inform them of what is happening in the grave. He never said return me to my office space. He never said return me to my business. He never said return me to my wives. He never said return me to my children. He never said return me to this world so I can implement some other action. He said no, return me to my family so I can inform them of the grave. So the angels replied to him that indeed none Kala or Rus sleep like beautiful people who now got married. Like when you now get married, you sleep peacefully. But when you have 2 years, 3 years, and you know how sleep has become. So the angels are giving a simile. This is sleep like you are in that state of beautiful bliss. Like you now got married. My dear esteemed brothers and sisters, understand the actions and the implementation of these angels in the grave. And then the Prophet ﷺ continues and he says, ثُمَّ يُنَوَّرُ. Then they enlighten the grave for that individual. And then the Prophet ﷺ continues and he says, وَسَبْعِينَ ذِرَاءً مِنْ سَبْعِينَ. And again, the grave expands 70 cubits by 70 cubits. Because of his good actions and his good doings. Whilst he was on the plane, whilst he was in this world. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Yasin, I will conclude with this inshallah ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Yasin, the chapter on the heart of the Quran, from verses 20 to 24. Allah tells us a story. He says, وَجَاءَ مِنْ أَقْصَى الْمَدِينَةِ رَجُلٌ يَسْعَى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين. That there was a man who was in a village, who came to this village to inform the people that listen to those messengers who came to inform you of the goodness and the glad tidings. Listen to them. But these people, they were heedless. These people were not listening to the messengers. And some of the commentators mention that these messengers were after the time of Isa alayhi salam, Prophet Jesus. And these messages came to reinform and re-advise the message of Isa alayhi salam. They were not prophets, they were like scholars. And they came to inform the people that indeed this is the way of guidance. But they will not take in heed. So they end up killing this man. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about قِيلَ دُخُلِ الْجَنَّةِ. Indeed it was said to him, أَنْتَ مَا جَنَّةِ. قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون. Oh, I wish I knew, if my people would only know what was happening to me. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وقال ربي, he says, وقيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون إذا غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. That indeed I wish my people only knew what is happening to me, how my Lord has forgiven me and honored me. Understand the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Surah Yasin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never stated day of judgment. He was talking about in the grave, that indeed this individual was implementing and telling the people to follow the messages, follow the people who are ilm, follow the people of understanding, follow the people of wisdom. But because they did not take heed, they ended up killing him. He was murdered, and when he was placed into the grave, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him glad tidings of Jannah. And then he said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I wish my people knew how you have forgiven me and how you have made me from the honored ones. Why? Look at his actions. Only to reinforce what the people of the scholars, the messengers were informing them. My dear esteemed brothers and sisters in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Imran, the chapter concerning the family of Imran, He says that, oh, إِذَا مُتُّمْ وَأَوْ قَتَلْتُمْ لَا إِلَهُ تُحْشَرُوا. Even if you were to pass away, or even if you were to be killed or murdered, or any form you die, indeed you will be resurrected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us cognizant of that. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us realize the actions in the grave. And I want to inform you of one action, one implementation you and I can do for the ending of this year. You all want to know it? I know time is going. But only if you all want to know. Yes. If you all want to know. One of the things that can protect you from the azab and the punishment of the grave, and also the hardness in sakaratul maut, the time of the death throes of death whilst you're on the deathbed, is to be in a state of wudu, to be in a state of ablution. There's a narration whereby it states that whosoever is in a state of ablution whilst he goes to his bed, يَحْفَظَهُ مَلَائِكَةً, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends the angels to protect him. وَإِذَا مَاتَ, and if he dies, فَإِنْدِيدْ بِشَهَادَةٍ, he will die with the shahada, لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ مُحَمَّدٌ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. To be in a state of wudu. Implement this action. You and I, we don't know how long we're going to live. You and I don't know how we'll answer those questions in the grave. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inculcate this in our hearts. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inculcate this in our minds. وأقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم.